Hello everyone, this is Zebo and welcome to this AFK Journey video. So in this AFK Journey video, I'm going to talk about the top 5 PvE teams that is most commonly seen in terms of content pushing. And I'll be rating the top 5 teams based on my own ranking, 5 being the weakest, the slowest, not so good, and 1 being the strongest, the more late game centric teams itself. For today's video, these PvE teams, they are more used for AFK challenges as well as your open world pushing, and I'll be focusing more on the team synergy and explaining why the team works. I'll leave the individual unit top 10s for another video, so stay tuned for that. I will talk about why each unit is top 10 in that list specifically, but for today's video is a top 5 team, why the team is good, why the team might not be that good, and what are the things you want to look out for, or the artifacts that you could potentially switch out for the team itself. Okay, more on the team, less on the individual unit. So without further ado, I'll use this AFK stage 333 to demonstrate. It's a very nice number. So the very first team, which is also the weakest team in my honest opinion in terms of pushing, is the Sisir team. So this team, I'll say Sisir will be the core unit and Torrent will be the core tank, which is pretty much I think what the early game team will look like. And then you probably swap in another very good early game healer like Smokey. And let's say if you are going the Mauler package, you can throw in your OD and then you throw in your Dear Coco over here. So if you need more tank, the flexibility can be from the Anthendra side. So Anthendra can protect your tank and then allow you to buy more time for Sisir to do her summons. Another way to sort of do this is to use Rowan, and then depending on what you need, you can obviously throw in your Coco, or if you want some fractional bonus, you might want some Igor to just be annoying, or you might just put in Carolina to be a secondary DPS. So this way you can have a 3 unit fractional bonus, which is not a lot, but is decent enough to do its job in most cases, at least in the early to mid stage of the content pushing. So this artifact itself, usually I'll say Starshot spell will be the recommended, because you need the additional haste so that Sisir can get her ultimate off. Right, you can obviously use the likes of Light Heal to make your whole team tankier and survive long enough for Sisir's ultimate to come off. You can also use Quick Hit spell, because if you're running the physical damage variant, for example this one, then the physical damage reduction is going to be really helpful. The additional stun will also buy you some time for the summons to come out, and the stats numbers on Quick Hit spell is really insane, which will increase and elevate the survival of your team a lot. So yeah, this is the 5th team, and the reason why this team is 5th is because I sincerely think that this team will still work in terms of early content pushing. And for those of you guys who have Sisir invested, you can definitely still use her. I think she's still viable up until a certain stage, but do take note that this team is not very good for deficit pushing, right? If you are fighting at this kind of 30,000 gap, 30k gap over here, this team is not as efficient, because the level deficit basically weakens Sisir's summon, and this makes the summon really frail. So even if you do get your ultimate off, in most cases the ultimate should be very impactful, but when you're under leveled in this kind of situation, the summon is not going to survive as well. And that's why the strategy of this team falls really hard on the floor once you reach very high deficits. And therefore this is the 5th team. It's good as long as you have some sort of level advantage, or if the deficit is not too big. But once you try to push beyond your certain power level, this team will definitely not be as efficient. So this is the 5th team, the Sisir core team. Okay, so moving towards the 4th team, this team is also relatively free-to-play friendly, because I think for most free-to-play players, if you haven't built Sisir, you'll be building this next carry, which is OD over here, because both Sisir and OD, they are amazing content pushers, and OD is slightly slower but accelerate towards the later part when you get the EX weapon unlocked. So free-to-play players either chose OD or Sisir, and I'll say OD is still an amazing unit for content pushing even at a deficit. This unit is really powerful, and in general this team is very free-to-play friendly, because if you take away Brutus, right, number 1, OD is a carry which I think most people recommend to free-to-play players, because he's just so versatile, just so good. So free-to-play players would have invested in him. And you have Smokey and Coco. So these 3 units together, they are pretty omnipotent, right? They are used in pushing contents, they are used in arena, they are also used in Dream Realm bosses. So if you're free to play, you should go for this kind of high value units. and these units will bring you a long way in terms of even the Song of Strife, because for Entendra's case, you don't even need her to be at a really high rank. She's given to everyone for free all the way up to the legendary tier, which I'll say for her job of shielding your carry to buy a little bit more time to let OD kill the enemy is more than sufficient. So this team's team idea is really straightforward. Basically, your front row is supposed to buy as much time as possible, and then Smokey and Coco will keep the whole team sustained going so that OD can slowly snipe down your enemies one by one. The idea of this team is really straightforward. The team's advantage is it being really free-to-play friendly, because even for Brutus' case, right, let's say if you didn't go for Torrent, right, you went for Brutus, you can secure his shard from the arena store as well. Although I don't recommend it for free-to-play players, but if you are running a full Mauler, you can do this. Possible substitute for this team, I'll say, will just be our dear where is Torrent, right? Torrent. So this is a 4-1. And if you're more premium, if you want to use a unit that does what Entendra does, you can obviously use Skalita, right? More premium. Skalita is a shield, and Skalita can be a semi-carry. So this is how you want to run. The other way to do it, bar all the factional bonuses, you can obviously run the likes of our dear Hewin over here. Give me a moment, right? So this will give you a triple sustain for your team, although quite weird because you already have so much heals from Coco and Smokey, but it is one combi that I saw people using. In terms of the Mauler side of things, I think there's not a lot of other units you can run together to fill out the void, because these 4 units, they are pretty free-to-play friendly, and I don't think people would have invested in other Maulers if you are free-to-play in the first place, because the other Maulers, they are more PvP centric, they are not so free-to-play friendly. So this would probably be the core 4, and then for the tank you can switch them out and see what you need, right? If you don't have Brutus and you don't have Torrent, but you have Granny, you can definitely run Granny. So I'll say the weakness of this team is relatively inflexible in terms of playstyle as well as the builds, because basically you are relying on these 4 units. So they are your basis of your team, and obviously you can put in Skalita for the Who, but like I think the other 3 units, they are quite irreplaceable. So the only 2 slots that are replaceable will be your tank, and the artifact of choice is obviously gonna be Starshard Spell, because Starshard Spell obviously promotes the haste while synergizing really well with OD's insta kill mechanic, because OD throws out the ultimate, kill somebody, get some energy back, throw another ultimate. So you do it 3 times, you proc one of this spell, and then you also have increased haste for your whole team to do what they want to do, which is Coco using the ultimate as well as Smokey spamming the ultimate as well. So that's one way. Obviously you can use Quick Blade spell as well, although for this team itself, I think it's not as efficient. Quick Blade spell does offer some physical damage reduction and stun and a lot of good stats, but because the carry of this team is OD by nature, you did rather have a mage or spell based artifact. At least based on what we have right now, is not unlocked yet, but moving forward as we unlock more seasonal artifacts, there might be an upgrade for this team, right? At least this is, I'll say, pre-stage 333 or 333 before. Okay, so for the third and second team, I'll say they are highly similar. Fundamentally, they are different in what they want to do, but for the third and second team, they are, I'll say, similar in terms of their core units. So core units being Iron and Arden. Okay, this team, number 3rd slot is our dear Full Wilders comp over here. So Full Wilders, basically you just run a full team of Wilders unit, and this team just works. Like this team is, I think this team rides a lot on Iron and Arden's late game power, and also a lot of Damien's and Hewin's late game sustain for the team. And for the tank slot, obviously you can run Torrent. You need not run Granny, but I call this the Full Wilders comp because this is a full team of Wilder. You are getting a lot of stats. So this team is tanky, this team hits hard, and this team can sustain and control all at the same time. So without putting in any other units on other faction, this team works on its own. However, this team is obviously not that cheap because you have units which are, I'll say, very PvP centric in the form of Hewin and Granny, and even though you do get their shards from the shop itself, they would probably not be your highest priority for most free-to-play players or low spenders to begin with. So just off like their tank as well as a healer, this is quite an expensive like investment in terms of the units. But be rest assured, these 2 units, they are really good in the late game, and obviously most people by now would know the power level of Iron and Arden. So yeah, you probably should have invested in them. They're really, really good. And for Damien's case, Damien just becomes a beast altogether. Once you get into the EX weapon for this hero, it's really, really good and gets his job done, right? In terms of flexibility, this team is also relatively flexible, right? If you don't need that much heal, you want more physical damage, you can just throw in Florbell, which provides physical damage as well as summons to buy more time, as well as control as well. If you just want a burst of magical damage, you just run Bryon, and then you just go fully ham on the Crescent spell, because you are able to build up a ton of magical damage quickly and then allow you to release the energy ball really quickly. So the team, I would say the biggest problem will be the cost, obviously, because some of these units, they are not like the more recommended ones. They're also not the units which people think about when they think about free to play, and it's obviously not the cheapest team, because you have one unit, Iron, who you cannot get from the shop. You have to purely gacha him, and then you have a tank, which is good, but it's not the topmost priority when people are using Torrent in most cases. Obviously, you can use Torrent in Granny's case, but Granny will be better in this comp because of her control ability, because of her taunt ability. It's something that Torrent doesn't have. And yeah, for the healers as well, they are really, really good. But yeah, not the free-to-play units that people recommend in most cases, right? So that's why this team is not cheap, but this team definitely does its job really well in terms of pushing contents, at the deficit. And I'll say like the second and the first team, they are a revision of this team in one way or another, so you guys will see later on. And for the artifact of choice, I'll say if you're playing the mage variants, then Crescent spell is definitely your go-to for more burst damage, for more damage reduction. If you need more control, right, control is one thing that this team has. You can use confining spell as well. You can also run Aldir Starshot spell, because Arden's able to use the ultimate really quickly. Damien's able to provide a mass haste for your team, and then Iron uses ultimate immediately if you have the M+ weapon. So this triggers Starshot spell really quickly and triggers Starshot spell a lot, and allows your team to spam their skills a lot more, which is the true power of Wilders, because their skills are so sick and powerful itself. So that is the full Wilders team. So flexibility wise, not as much, but I will say that you can definitely put in other units, and these other units will change into the other variation or the second team, which is I'll say like really, really powerful in terms of pushing contents at a deficit, and that is none other than the control team. Give me a moment, okay? The mage control team, or the Iron Arden Carolina combo, or like the Iron Arden combo, or whoever, like how you name it, okay? So this is the core of the team. I'll just call this team the control team, because the core of this team, or the idea of this team, is not so much so on damage. This team does a lot of damage for sure, but this team's main theme is actually control, right? Iron AoE control, group everyone together. Carolina's ultimate freezes everyone when they're close together. Arden has a root, keeping everybody in place. And obviously you can throw in other units which fits into the control team as well. But in most cases, you will fill in the void with this one, with Torrent, as well as our dear Damien over here. So Damien's obviously for the heal as well as the haste, so that these three mage cores can do their control effects more consistently and hit harder the faster they throw out their spell. And you obviously need a front line, but let's say if you have the chance of not fielding a tank, you can obviously throw in the Lights of Raynor and rely on Iron being the semi-tank, and this way you have more fractional bonus if you decide to run the Raynor. Okay, so this is one strat that you guys might want to know. You can obviously run Granny, right? Granny for additional control, even though Granny doesn't have that much synergy in terms of the damage type, because Granny is physical by nature. And yes, Torrent is not magical at all as well, but Torrent has damage up, right? Damage increase in terms of the seasonal skill. Okay, give me just tap on the skill for a little bit, right? He has a damage up on the seasonal skill, and he also has the life drain, right, which doesn't matter the damage type. And then he also has a receive damage increase, or rather make the energy receive increased damage, which benefits the mage teams as well. So Torrent is, I'll say, more versatile in terms of being in both a physical and magical team compared to Granny. But Granny does the job well. In a sense, Granny also control. But most of the time, if you see people running the Carol, Arden, and Iron combo, they will be running with Torrent, because you need like this additional life that Torrent can survive, so that you have enough time for the backlines to do what they want. And Granny, yes, Granny is good, but Granny is I'll say you have to wait for a little bit before she comes online in terms of control, which might not be something you want for this team. This team's main power is control and the high burst that it can provide. So this team is insanely good in terms of deficit pushing as well. But this team is definitely not cheap, because obviously the same units, they are good, they are not obtainable that easily. Carolina as well as Iron, they're not obtainable that easily. If you factor in Torrent, it's also not easy. And at the same time, I'll say team building wise, this team is not as flexible as well, because you have to have these 3 units as the core. Like, I think you can run these 2 and then you can build towards the wilder side of things, but I think this team truly shines with Carol in place, because they layer their control effects so well that you can literally hold enemy in place if you can survive. Right, compared to the Wildest team, I think Wildest team is to survive, control, and do damage at the same time. So fundamentally, the idea is different. But this team, right, is just control all the way until the enemy die. That's how good it is. And that's why you can function without a tank as long as you have enough heal, as long as Iron can survive. Okay, in terms of alternative, you can obviously not use a tank, right? Like I mentioned, you can just use Iron as a semi-tank and then use Reina for the swap. So Reina provides damage reduction as well as heal for the carry sent in. So Iron being a good unit with decent tank is going to be like a pretty decent semi-tank with the damage reduction as well as the heal that drops on him. So you can do this. And if you don't want to use a Damien, obviously you can use Healwyn, right? Or you can use Kalita for more stats, as well as the shield, which keeps your tank alive for a little bit longer, although you don't have the haste buff and the heal. I think one issue with this team is you rely a lot on Damien sustain, and sometimes if you're at a really high level deficit where the enemies just insta-kill your backlines, Damien might not be the best choice. Then this is where you remove him and then you use Torrent to just tank up the initial burst of damage, and then you kill them from the controls and damage that this team can do. So yeah, this team, I will say this is the 3 important unit. I don't think you can swap them out. I don't think you have a better alternative to these 3. The other unit I can think of is obviously Elsa, right? So Elsa is also really good, but I think in terms of sheer control, Carolina is a lot better. Like, Elsa has control, yes, Elsa has damage, but Elsa is not the best in terms of the control team. So Elsa might be better in the full Wildest comp, where you take out 1 unit and then you put Elsa for like all this massive synergy with Iron and Arden. But if you're talking about a full control team, if you're talking about CC while doing a lot of damage at the same time, this 3 is the face of the team. So this is the second team, Iron, Arden, CC team. And the artifact of choice for this one is obviously Confining Spell. Fits into the control team, right? Provides decent stats, not the best, but this control ability synergizes really well with Arden as well. And you can obviously use the likes of Quick Blade Spell, which also offers stuns, also a little bit of control there, and also decent stats, right? Good defense, good magical defense, as well as offensive stats. Or you can run Crescent Spell, because just nice, this team does a lot of magical damage. So what you can do is, you know, Iron's going to group everyone together, and then you're going to freeze everybody in place with Arden and Carolina, and then you'll start throwing all these Rustling Guns, all this energy up at the fixed location where the enemies are at. So pretty insane there. Team number 2, second strongest team in terms of deficit pushing. Okay, so next one, this team is a really premium team in a sense. We have Granny back once again, we have Healwyn back once again, and we have Rowan back once again, and we have Kalita right in the team. So this is the core of the last team. This is called the store team, the store team, or just a very powerful store team in general, because it relies on Rowan's massive potion heals and buffs to keep your Granny for alive, and then it relies on Granny's control route to buy as much time as possible, and then throw in a Healwyn for that massive heal and damage reduction. Most of the time, right, in massive deficit pushing, I think I can show you guys on this one. Let's go into the records. So we have this Iron, Arden, and Carolina combo, as you guys can see. So they swap out Damien. This is like massive deficit pushing, by the way. So this is how the stage power looks like. Okay, so 333, we are nearly 20,000-30,000. So I'll just showcase some like super endgame battle records based on this account. You guys can see for yourself. So this guy runs the Carolina Arden, the control team, which I mentioned earlier. Okay, and then I think this guy runs the same thing. So like I'll say that team is a downgrade compared to this one in terms of cost, because this team is more expensive because you need Skalita at a quite high tier. So yeah, over here, as you guys can see, so this is one variation. I'll showcase what this team can do at one time, so you guys can see for yourself what this team wants to do. So the core of this team is definitely Rowan, Skalita, and Granny. Like this is the top one team in terms of deficit pushing. Like there are just certain stages where your mage team, they cannot survive at all, and you need to run like this Granny and Torrent setup just to tank up, because they are the tankiest frontliner to charge in front. So there is no other combi where you can survive. So you have to rely on Torrent and Granny will be there for the control, for the energy reduction, so your enemy cannot like do stuff. They cannot use their energy because they're rooted in place, as you guys can see over here. And then you have Rowan to just keep on spamming his ultimate to give energy to your whole team. And the main source of damage comes from this Starshot spell, obviously, because of the Rowan synergy, right? Because of Granny holding people in place. And then you have Skalita to provide for the bridging of the stats, as well as the insta-kill, as well as the shielding, as well as the damage that Skalita can do, and the CC as well to buy more time to do more Starshot spell. So this is one of, if not the current best, strongest team in terms of content pushing at the mega late game. Okay, so I will showcase another one. So this is my main account. Obviously, I also use the Carolina and Iron comp, but there will be certain situations where you cannot run this comp because your unit is just not gonna survive long enough, and that's where this team comes in, right? So some of the mega whales or the biggest player, they just run this and ram through the team. So I just showcase another one. So in terms of the unit's flexibility, obviously if you don't need that much heal, right, because you have shield from Skalita and you have heal from Rowan, you can throw in Arden, right, in the place of Healwyn. You can also throw in Iron in the place of Healwyn. So the advantage of Iron in that position is you group everybody together, so Granny's ultimate will hit as much targets as possible, which will store them out. So the idea of this team is to store them out, and then you rely on Starshot spell for damage, you rely on Skalita for the damage, you rely on just keeping your enemies in place. Like this team has a little bit of control, has more stall, and just really good in terms of pushing contents at a deficit, because you have two of the strongest tank together. And yeah, this is how the team runs, right? So you guys can see Skalita will start smacking people out of the battlefield. Okay, so we start smacking and then sending them out, and I'm just gonna let the replay finish and talk about the team once again. Okay, so Skalita can die, but with 4 units alive, right, you still have Starshot spell to do damage, to burn through the enemy, and then that's where you kill the enemy off, right? So because Starshot spell is true damage, so it's not reduced, and it's really good. And this is one of, if not the strongest late game team in terms of content pushing. Okay, so let's run through the team once again for you guys to understand what's the power. So we usually have Danny. If you need more tank, you need more sustain, you put in a Torrent, because Torrent can take some damage and Torrent can protect Granny enough for her ultimate to come online. And then the key unit is Rowan, okay, and Skalita. This three will be the core. We call it the store team. And then you put in Healwyn if you need heal, right? You put in Arden if you need AoE damage, if you need control. You put in Iron if you want to group everyone together. So this is how the team looks like. In fact, I think for the first, second, and third team, they have very similar costs to a certain extent, but this team is the most expensive in my honest take, because a lot of your power level relies on Danny as well as Skalita and Rowan, because you need Rowan at a really high tier for his potion to have the maximum healing effect. So Rowan is not a unit which people will actively push to a really high tier unless you are spending a lot in the game, unless you are preparing to push stuff at a deficit. So this team is probably the most expensive, partially because of Skalita, also because the units that you're investing in, they are not the most commonly recommended, and they are not the most versatile in terms of game mode usage. So yeah, in terms of the artifact of choice, there's only one, which is Starshot spell. The goal of this team, to just cycle through your skills as much as possible, hold your enemy in place, shield people with Skalita, and then Skalita comes down, stun, and then win the battle from there. So this is the top 1 team, the strongest team in terms of deficit pushing, the strongest team in terms of content pushing itself. So that's it, the top 5 PvE teams for content pushing in Song of Strife itself. Let me know down in the comment section below which one is your favorite, which one you think is, in your opinion, the best one for yourself, right, based on your own condition. emotions, as well as whether or not you agree with this list of the top 5 best PvE team in pushing contents. Thank you very much for tuning in. Do remember to like and subscribe to see more AFK Journey contents from the channel. I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye guys!